Hello guys, it is me, and it's HorrorFan34, and welcome back to another video. Sorry about the cough, sorry. But this is the continuation of my reviews for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Now we're getting on to the next one, which is the prequel to the remake, and now for the last three reviews for these Chainsaw films, I don't own them. I'll tell you right now, this is going to be, the last two are going to be rants, because I hate the last two films. I did not care for Leatherface, and I hated Chainsaw 3D. So, just to give you a little heads up, the next two will be rants. This one will not be a rant. But the thing is with this film, though, this is, of course, on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. I don't have a DVD of this, so the next three reviews, like I said, I'm not going to be holding anything up. But, Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, was released in 2006. Because the film, the remake, made a lot of money, and so they decided to go with a prequel this time. Directed by Jonathan Liebesman. Jonathan Liebesman as a director, he directed Battle Los Angeles. He also directed Darkness Falls. That's an underrated horror film from the early 2000s about the Tooth Fairy. I don't know if anybody's seen Darkness Falls, but please let me know below if you've seen that before. But I really do enjoy Darkness Falls. Jonathan Liebesman has been part of other films too as like a producer and things like that, but he directed this film, Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, where basically, the one thing with this film though, I will say, it's not a bad movie at all, in my opinion. It's not a bad movie at all. It's a decent flick. But the thing is with me though is, you already, like, it's one of those films where you already know what's going to happen before you even watch the movie, because it's a prequel to the remake. You know what I mean? Because, like, since you know it happens before the remake, you already know what the conclusion's going to be. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is a film that I don't really watch a whole lot, because I think it's a decent flick, because I like the act, because I like, you know, Ermey and Andrew Bernarski. The gore, it's really gory and things like that. So I like all that stuff. But it's like one of those films I don't rewatch a whole lot, because it's one of those films where you already know what the conclusion's going to be. And I felt like the backstory, you know, I just feel like the backstory, like, you know what I mean? I just kind of feel like the backstory to Leatherface was kind of unnecessary, because you can kind of figure out his backstory by just watching the remake, because, you know what I mean? Because like if you don't know, this is an origin film about the rebirth of Leatherface, in my opinion. This is the origin story of Leatherface. Sorry, I can't talk right today. Basically, it shows you like how he was born, he was raised, and things like that. How he got the chainsaw and things like that. But you know, like, it opens with, you know, Leatherface's mother, who works in a meat factory, and she gives birth to a baby, and she dies from giving birth. The baby gets thrown in the garbage, and then an older lady finds the baby and raises it on her own. And of course, you have Ermey as part of the family, and things like that. You know, and he grows up to be a butcher in the slaughterhouse. He's got a deformity. Basically, he kills the one guy who was being a jerk to him. You know, because the slaughterhouse is closing down, no one's going to it anymore, and things like that. And basically, you have these four people. Jordana Brewster, who went on to be known for the Fast and the Furious franchise, the later ones. You also have a couple of other people in there too, but I think Jordana Brewster is probably the most well-known out of the four. You have like two guys and two girls, and they're driving across the country. They're driving through Texas, and one thing leads to another. This biker gang's messing with them, and they get run off the road and flipped over because there's something in the way on the road. I think it's a cow in the middle of the road. Then Ermey shows up and saves him from the biker gang, and he takes Jordana Brewster stays behind while the other three go to the house, and of course you know what happens from there. But I just felt like, you know, the backstory of Leatherface was kind of unnecessary, because, you know, it was really one of those things where I kind of already knew, like, what his backstory was going to be like. You know, he was born all with the disfiguration. I kind of figured that. He was born in a slaughterhouse. I kind of figured that. How did he find the chainsaw? Like, oh, it was just there. Oh, okay. Arlie Ermey wasn't really he wasn't a real sheriff. I kind of figured that. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where I felt like the backstory, the origin, wasn't really much to run home about, in my opinion. I mean, I know maybe, I don't know if I'm on the minority of that. I don't know. But like I'm saying, this is not a rant, because there are some really good things about this film. Arlie Ermey, once again, does a great job as the sheriff. I didn't mind the four friends. I didn't mind like Jordana Brewster and things like that, but I think Jessica Biel was a far better lead, in my opinion, than Jordana Brewster. And on top of that, too, you know, I think the one thing that I think stands out about this film is the gore. This film is really, really gory. It's got really good gore effects, and I think that's the main highlight of the film for me, was the gore. Because there's a lot of really gruesome deaths, like this one guy's trying to run through the field and he gets caught in a bear trap, and that's pretty graphic. You have one guy who's nailed down to a wooden table, and the chainsaw goes through him, and that's where you see that's how Leatherface gets his first mask, his first face, things like that. Of course, you have the dinner scene once again, and things like that. And it's like also one of those things too where, since this is a prequel, you already know what's going to happen to the four friends. They're all going to die. Because, you know, because there's a point where the one guy is, like, Jordana Brewster escapes, and the one guy is messing up Arlie Ermey, but he doesn't kill him, of course, because it's a prequel. You know what I mean? If this is a prequel, then how is Arlie Ermey in the remake? You know what I mean? Because I think that's one of the things, too, with the way the remake ends, because... Spoilers, by the way, if you don't want to know how it ends. But you know, the way that the remake ends, Jessica Biel gets away with the baby. She runs over Arlie Ermey with the car. Of course, Leatherface only has one arm because she cut it off with the meat cleaver. And I think because with that one, I guess they couldn't make a sequel because now Leatherface only has one arm. So that's why they went the prequel route, because what led up to the remake. But and on top of that, too, it's like one of those things where you already know what's going to happen to the characters. Because they're all going to die. Because it's a prequel. And I'll tell you one thing. The one thing I thought was really stupid was the way it ended. You know, when I say how it ended was stupid, is because, not because all the characters died. Because I already knew that was going to be the case. Because it's a prequel. But just the way they executed it was so stupid. Because what happens is, spoilers, by the way, we don't want to know the ending, shut off the video right now, but Jordana Brewster escapes while the guy is messing up Arlie Ermey, and Leatherface is there too, and Jordana Brewster escapes while the guy is distracting the family and messes up Arlie Ermey. Of course, Leatherface kills him, and Jordana Brewster is miles and miles and miles ahead of Leatherface when she runs. She gets in the car, and she drives a good mile or two down the road, so she's way ahead of Leatherface, way ahead of him when she ran, and she drove a few miles, and so she's completely in the distance away from Leatherface. And then all of a sudden, when she's driving down the road, she sees two cops, and of course, that's when Leatherface magically teleports in the back seat of the car, ramps up the chainsaw, and drives it right through the seat, and it goes through her stomach and kills her. And of course, she loses control of the car because she gets killed, and the cops get killed by getting run over, and then it ends with Leatherface walking back towards the house. That's like the one thing. It's like it just doesn't. It's like a fantasy. Like, she was far ahead of Leatherface, way ahead, but yet somehow she ran many miles, a lot of miles away from him. Gets in the car and drives a few miles way ahead of him too, but somehow he magically appears in the back seat of the car. You know what I mean? It's like the way that they executed the ending was stupid. Not because the characters all died, because you know that was going to be the case because it's a prequel, but just the way that it was executed was stupid, because he just teleported in the back seat of the car when he was all the way at the back of the house. It just doesn't make any sense. But other than that, though, I think this film is decent. It's got really good gore. I like the actors, and like especially Arlie Ermey. I think Jordana Brewster is a decent lead, but I would say Jessica Biel was a far better female lead in my opinion. Andrew Bernarski does a solid job as Leatherface, and the one thing that stands out is the gore. The gore stands out the most in this film, but overall it's a decent film, and I say it's a pretty decent flick. So that is pretty much it for my review for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Alright guys, take care.